Fantasy Football Drive. We're back.
Welcome back, fantasy football fans. We got a loaded show tonight with news with BK. Got some questions from our fans, and we're going through the 1 through 12 on our quarterback rankings. So stay put. We got a good one for you. Let me pass it on over to BK.
Well, welcome back again to the Fantasy Football Drive. We're here, episode 4. And today, as you can see from the title, we're going to be hitting on those QB rankings. We're going to do our top 12. Again, 12 team PPR based. All of our rankings are that way unless specified or noted from us. And that is what we're going to be diving into today. Been a fun week, Sean. Training camp, buddy.
Oh, man, my favorite part of the year.
It's just nice to tune in, turn on NFL Network, see the guys out there working, get a little bit of football action. Kind of fills a little bit of a need that we're all looking for.
Just means it's getting closer.
So, I'm going to get into some news, Sean. Trey Lance. I'm sure some of you guys have seen in the news, the Niners came out and pretty much said Trey Lance is our guy. Jimmy G, we're going to be letting you go. We're going to be doing something. Most likely, they're just going to end up cutting him.
He gone.
Yeah, he gone. So, yeah, we'll have to see where he lands. I'll be kind of curious to see Seattle, Cleveland. Yeah, I mean, the Giants. I wouldn't rule out the Giants either. Any thoughts on Jimmy G?
I can really see him ending up in Seattle there, BK. I mean, they would be nasty with Garoppolo back there.
Yeah, I mean, they have the talent. Like, Metcalf, Lockett, that rookie running back. Penny's not bad. Noah Fant's up there at tight end now.
I believe Ken Walker III's there too. I think we just had an episode about him.
He is a stud.
Yes, he is.
He's one of your sleepers.
Yes, he is a super fast stud.
If you go back to episode 3, you can catch up on all of those sleeper running backs and tight ends. And speaking of running backs, James Robinson. News came out that he is not going to start training camp on the PUP list. And actually, I had NFL Network on. I saw him. He was out on the field stretching and doing some drills.
I think that's going to hurt ETN, man.
Yeah, you're going to have to adjust your ADPs, I think, a little bit because I think a lot of us were expecting Robinson to kind of be out at least a couple weeks and give ETN a few games where we could kind of rely on him as a solid number one. And I think while you can still rely on him in the receiving game, with Robinson being back, it's definitely going to impact his rushing yards.
Back to the committee style.
Nobody likes that.
No.
I got and here the Julio Jones. I'm sure we all saw this news today. Julio Jones signs with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Sean, do you think he has any fantasy impact?
Actually, I do, BK. I see him being another weapon for Tom Brady, and now Tom Brady's got half the Atlanta receiving crew on his side.
But yeah, he could really plug in there. But I'm just curious what his role is. Do you think he's more of a help us get by till Godwin comes back guy, or do you think he's someone that they plan on relying on throughout the whole year and hope he stays healthy?
I think they rely on him for the whole year. When Godwin does come back, I mean, it'll be kind of like Evans, Godwin, and Brown was last year. Filling that brown hole with Julio. It's just another weapon for the GOAT, man.
Did you say brown hole?
I did say brown hole.
I just want to make sure I caught that.
That
was nice.
Yeah.
Hey, we can get a little nasty in here from time to time.
Got to slip it in every now and then.
That's what she said. And Chris Carson. I don't know if any of you guys caught the news here that he retired. He was released by the Seahawks with an injury designation, which kind of really was actually a good thing for them to do. He ends up getting like an extra $5 million, I read. So they did right by him. Sad to see that he has to end the career that way. What are your thoughts on Chris Carson? As he used to be a fantasy beast.
Yeah, actually, I think I picked him last year in the draft. Actually, I did.
I'm,
I picked him
I'm
number
pretty
one
sure you
overall
did.
last year.
Yeah, because
So,
you ended up trading them to me, and then I got stuck with them.
right, it's all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan. It's sad to see somebody go out with a neck injury like that. You know, we both talked about it in our last episode that we had gut feelings that he was not looking good. So, I wish him the best and hope he can live a happy, healthy rest of his life.
Absolutely, yeah, I always wish the best for these guys, even when we critique them. It's all just because ultimately we're playing our own game too. We're never wishing any harm on anybody, wishing for injuries or any of that. It's all just part of the game, and glad to see that he was able to walk away, still able to walk and be somewhat healthy, and that the Seahawks did right by him.
You're right there, BK.
Now we got a new segment to add because we did get some questions in from the website. Um, our first one here is from John C. Johnny asks, "How do you recommend approaching the draft? I'm in the eighth spot. Should I go running back, receiver in the first 3 rounds, wide receiver, running back, tight end? How should I approach it?" So for John C, what are you thinking there, Sean, for his approach eighth spot, 12 team PPR snake draft? What are you thinking for him for his approach?
Well, you know what, I'm gonna give you kind of my recommendation, but for the last 2 years, I've been super successful, and like I said, I got 2 championships in the last 2 years, and I drafted the same way both times. I went running back, quarterback, wide receiver, which is really unheard of a lot in a lot of drafts taking a quarterback that early. But if you can get yourself the talent that's going to get you 40 to 60 points every week, it's worth taking the top quarterback early. So that's what I would do. That's how I have it. If not, I'm normally a wide receiver guy.
So what is your recommendation again for John?
Mine is at the A spot. I would like still get quality running back. Your probably second pick, come back, probably get a super high ranked quarterback,
Okay.
and then pick up wide receivers because you got a lot of depth in wide receivers.
Okay. So coming back in that second round, which should be pretty quick in that A spot, you almost think you could get Josh Allen in that spot, wouldn't you?
Yeah, Josh Allen or like a Justin Herbert, somebody up there in the top.
Okay. Um, and obviously we differ, so that's why we do this. A different opinion. I personally, John, I would go running back, wide receiver, or depending, running back, wide receiver. Now, there's nothing wrong with what Sean said. I that can be very successful as it's worked for him. Um, I just see I always go off value and I always see what's there. So I would think in that ace spot, you'd be looking like, depending on how they fall, like a Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, or possibly even a Jamar Chase if you went wide receiver first. But I don't know. Eighth might be a little rich for Chase in that spot. And then for your second pick coming back, you could be in that like CD Lamb, Diggs, Debo, Hill, Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, or even be looking at like a Saquon, a Nick Chubb, or an Aaron Jones pick there. Um, and then the third round in that A spot, it's prime territory for Michael Pittman and AJ Brown, a T Higgins, Deontay Johnson, or even looking at the rookie from Denver, Jamonte Williams in that spot. So really, a lot of it's going to depend on how they fall to you. But I think in that situation, in that spot, I would recommend going running back, wide receiver, wide receiver.
Yeah, I like where you're going with that, BK. Like I said, you got to give them options, give them things to think about. You know.
Yeah, and again, there's nothing wrong with either approach really. Even with that high quarterback pick, like you said, you're locked in with a solid guy all year. You could draft another one QB later on, and have a little bit of insurance on the bench just in case. And I always say it's a good idea to have at least a couple decent quarterbacks on your team because you hate to be relying on the one he goes down and you feel like your whole season went in the trash. So
Right, that was actually my 2020 season. There,
yeah,
running with Prescott there, and he was killing it. And then he went down, but I had Mahomes on the bench, so
oh,
Mahomes led me the rest of the way to the championship.
yeah, that could be a proven success, and we've seen it work for you.
Hell yeah, it is. It is definitely one of my top things. Going with two high value quarterbacks. It's just a hit or miss option. I mean, you can one week you can play one, next week has a better matchup, you play the other. So
Yep.
it's definitely a good option to look at.
Um, Now we have another question, and this one's directed at you. So I assume Eric Eric R. He had a question for Sean. He must have listened the other day, and he has this question for you, Sean. He says, "I love Mo Alley Cox too, but I live in the Indy area, and most of my league mates are Colts fans too. I don't want to miss out on Alley Cox, but when is it too early to draft him? And if not him, who would be your next choice that could match his potential?"
All right. Well, Eric R. After discussing with BK here, we actually had a little discussion about Mo Alley Cox ourselves. Seeing his value, what is ranked 32nd, I think was it?
Yeah,
He's rated
32nd.
pretty far down on the list. I don't think I'd reach too far for him. It does say you here live in the Indy area, so and your league mates are Indy fans too, so you might get some reachers at that point too, especially if they listen to our show. But I don't see him going any earlier than the 10th round. I mean, if you really want him bad enough, he's there in the 8th. Maybe you can take that little bit of reach, but you gotta make the reach at that point, and that's a gamble. So, but in other similar value players in that area, I would have Hayden Hurst and Logan Thomas, both right around that area too. That I can see being some solid tight ends for you in that area.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And even I'm just throwing in my little thoughts here. As I had him for a sleeper the other day on our show, Brevin Jordan. I, I, I think that guy's going to end up having a pretty decent year. I think that's a guy. So if you go after somebody there in that spot, if you even wait till the very last round, I think you can grab a guy like Brevin Jordan and kind of cross your fingers and hope that he pans out.
I think I think hopefully that helped you out, Eric R. Keep listening. Like I said, we'll have some other good ones for you too.
Absolutely. Yeah, send the questions in. Get on fantasyfootballdrive.com. Scroll down there to the bottom. Send a question to us. We love answering these. So send them in and we will continue this segment. Um, Now we're going to jump into our QB rankings as advertised. Sean, I'm going to kick this one off. So, number one, I think, is fairly obvious across the board. Um, Josh Allen had an incredible 2021 season, finishes the number one fantasy QB. I think after that tough playoff loss on the road in KC, look for Allen to do whatever it takes to get his Bills back in the playoffs. And I mean, he's going to go all out for home field advantage. He's going to ensure the road to the Super Bowl goes through Buffalo. I think with Cole Beasley losing, they actually made an upgrade with Jamison Crowder. Gabriel Davis showed us all what he can do in the playoffs last season. Diggs returning, and that duo is going to be a force to deal with. Allen has incredible chemistry too with Dawson Knox that we know. So I would expect Allen to dominate this season through the air and on the ground. So that's why I have him at number one. For number two, I have Patrick Mahomes. Last year, he had a typical fantasy season, even though it seemed like he was less productive. He still finished fourth overall in fantasy points for QBs. And coincidentally, that's exactly where he finished in 2020 as well. I do think that Reed does unleash Mahomes a little more this year, gives him a little more leeway in the passing game. So this is why I got him bumped up to number two. At number three, Justin Herbert. Herbert last year finished as the number 2 fantasy quarterback. I think he's going to continue to rack up stats. We know the arm that he got. He's averaging just under 23 fantasy points per game last year. Um, I think he'll be right in that area again and battling with Mahomes. Of course, then they got Wilson and Carr, and that powerhouse AFC West is also as well. So all big games in that division. In my number 4 QB, I have Jalen Hurts. Now, Jalen was the number 8 fantasy quarterback last year. The Eagles have only helped him by getting a few more pieces in that offense. You got Pro Bowler A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith coming back for his second year. Looks like Hurts has all he's going to need to make that big jump in the fantasy ranks. He finished with 10 rushing touchdowns in 21. He proved that he can be trusted to help out with those short yardage rushing touchdowns. And if they can just get that passing game going a little more, I think Hurts is ready to make that jump up from 8 to 4 this year. And then for my rounding out my top 5, how could I not have Tom Brady in my top 5 quarterback rankings? He lives in the top 5 every year. So, and the GOAT will be back again in Tampa Bay. He's going to be ready to get back to the Super Bowl again. No Chris Godwin to start the beginning of the season. Gronk's retired. They won't make things any easier for Brady. That's why I moved him to 5. He was 3 last year. I think with the addition of Russell Gage, it can be a huge help if they can get their chemistry perfected by the time season kicks off. They got all the time in training camp and preseason games to get that going, and I think they will. And that's why I'm comfortable putting Tom here at 5. So my top 5: Allen, Mahomes, Herbert, Hurts, and Brady. Sean, any thoughts on my start to my rankings list here? Anything surprising?
No, I'm actually pretty close with you on a couple of those top ones there. We got a few of the same guys up there. I feel like you're right on the same page with me and probably a good majority of our fantasy listeners. So
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing who you got on the next part of your list here.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go 6 through 12 and round out my QB rankings here. Number 6, I have Kyler Murray. Uh, Murray certainly has had a lot of attention directed at him this offseason. Questions of his work ethic and film study led the Cardinals to stick an interesting stipulation into his contract extension. Um, it mandates he must spend at least 4 hours a week studying film away from the team. That shouldn't even need to be mandated. I mean, people like Brady and you remember Manning just lived and breathed football. They would have to fall asleep watching their tablets or computers and watching game film. Um, Murray has a ton of weapons at his disposal with Hopkins, Ertz, Rondale Moore, and a new addition, Marquise Hollywood Brown, which happens to be his former college teammate. Um, and the Cardinals he'll be relying on that offensive line to come together and improve to give the plays time to develop. I mean, without the time to develop, Kyler isn't scrambling for his life every play. Hopefully, every time he drops back, it seemed like he was scrambling for his life. Hopkins will be out 6 games from a PED suspension. That doesn't help. And it'll be up to Murray to keep the offense chugging along. He does have potential to be a top 3 fantasy quarterback, especially with that running ability, but we're going to have to just see how he all puts it together. I think that's the big thing with him is it just doesn't seem like he has the drive, so to speak. So, number 7, I have Lamar here. We all know Lamar can rack up fantasy points with his legs. He's been doing it at a high level for the last couple of years, including the MVP in 2019. I would think, though, the real question is can he throw the ball well enough to not only win games, but help fantasy team owners win games and championships by consistently throwing the ball well enough to at least make a difference. He lost his best friend, Marquise Brown, who I just talked about. He was traded to Arizona in the offseason. The Ravens have said that Rashawn Bateman will be the team's number 1. We know Mark Andrews is there, been a number 1 fantasy tight end 2 years in a row. So Lamar leans on him, but it just still is. It's not enough to move the needle for me to put him any higher than 7 at this point. Um, and really, only time will tell where Lamar stands with these other top fantasy quarterbacks. Um, I could be a little hesitant with Lamar this year. I'm not as confident as I have been in the past, but comfortable with him here at 7. Number 8, I have Dak Prescott. So here we are, 2022, and we still don't really know what to think of Dak as a fantasy quarterback yet. You would think by now that we know. He has moments where it's obvious he belongs in the top 10 of fantasy quarterbacks, and then there are times when we aren't sure if he even can comfortably start him in our lineups. Dak has to be able to find that middle ground. This offseason didn't help at all letting Amari Cooper go for a bag of peanuts, and Cedric Wilson walked free to Miami. Dak's going to be counting on CD Lamb, who's coming off back to back 70 plus yard receiving years and 900 plus yardage seasons. And he's had at least 6 total touchdowns both years. But with Cooper, but without Cooper there, I just wonder, can Dak, Schultz, CD, and Gallup get it all together and make Dak a top fantasy quarterback again? I think we're going to have to wait and see. But for now, I got Dak at 8 in my rankings. At number 9, Joe Burrow. Joe Cool. But, he's laid his claim to the top of the fantasy quarterback rankings at this point. His rapport with Jamar Chase is incredible. Burrow knows how and when to get Chase the ball, and this combo has the potential to take it to the house on any play. I mean, considering that they've improved their offensive line significantly, added Aiden Hurst at tight end, got Mixon coming back, Chase, T. Higgins. He has all the tools to pick up right where he left off last year. I think he's going to explode coming out into the 2022 season. He's got another year with head coach Zach Taylor. And I think the Burrow and the Bengals can expand the playbook and unleash on defenses all year this year. So I have him at 9. Getting to my number 10. So hitting the top 10 here. Aaron Rodgers. Yes, I finally have him here. Everybody's probably going, where in the hell do you have Aaron Rodgers? Well, coming off of back-to-back MVPs and over 4,000 yard passing, 37 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. How can the number 6 fantasy quarterback from last season be ranked all the way at 10? Well, I'll tell you. He lost the number 1 receiver in football, Devontae Adams. Also seeing departures from Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Equanimous St. Brown. Rodgers is going to be seeing a whole new cast of guys in depth positions they haven't really been in before. Yeah, Allen Lazard does have the capability to be a number 1, but we haven't seen it for a whole season. You got Randall Cobb still there. He's another year older. Didn't really produce much last season anyway. So Rodgers in the passing game is pretty much going to be counting on some young talent to blossom. Guys like rookies Christian Watson and second year Amari Rodgers will need to step up. They're going to need to learn the offense to become an asset. I think Tanyan should be fully healthy. But losing 3 receivers from one of the best, to one of the best in the league in Adams, it will be tough for Rodgers to improve his value from 6 from last year. So I think 10 is a comfortable spot to put him. For number 11, I have Mr. Matthew Stafford, the Super Bowl champ. Look, he got away from Detroit his first year, goes to the Rams, wins the Super Bowl. He made Cooper Kupp a Pro Bowler and household name. They've added Allen Robinson, throw in a returning Van Jefferson with another year experience in that explosive Sean McVay offense. I think Stafford will have no problem being a top 12 quarterback. That's why I have him here at 11. It's a no-brainer for me. I think Stafford's going to continue his success of being the number 5 overall quarterback last year. But I do expect him to lean a little more heavily on the run game, just so Stafford can remain durable for the whole season. And, of course, they want him to be there to make that Super Bowl run again. So that's why I have Stafford at 11, which will bring me to number 12 and the end of my list, Sean. And that number 12 guy is Kirk Cousins. Yes, you like that. How could a guy with wide receivers Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, running back Dalvin Cook not be considered a top 10 quarterback. Um, but he finished 11th overall last year. Had over 4,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. I like the fact that Kevin O'Connell is coming in to take over for Zimmer. Um, I think we'll expect Cousins will be more productive considering what O'Connell did with last year as an OC from the Rams. Look what he did with Stafford and Cup this year. It wouldn't be a surprise to see Cousins move up this list, but I would almost consider him a sleeper at this point. I mean, the talent there with Jefferson and Thielen, and as I had a sleeper yesterday at tight end, Irv Smith Jr. Um, I just can't wait to see what Kirk Cousins does in 2022, and I have him at 12. That rounds out my top 12. So I'll just recap going backwards again, Sean. Number 12, Cousins. 11, Stafford. 10, Rodgers. 9, Burrow. 8, Prescott. Lamar at 7. Kyler at 6. Brady at 5. Hurts at 4. Herbert at 3. Mahomes at 2. And Mr. Josh Allen by number 1.
That's a
Bring
that's a
you in now
hell of
to
a top 12 there, buddy.
thank you, Sean. So, I mean, what do you think of my top 12?
I mean, I got a few different ones ranked a little differently there. Cousins kind of surprised me on the list, but then again, I do see your points. He has all the weapons to be dangerous, So I think it'd be their year with the Packers losing Devontae Adams, the Bears not looking good with Fields. In Detroit, I mean, they're stepping it up. They'd probably get a run, but I can see Minnesota making a push for the playoffs.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Cousins with. Jefferson's an animal. We know what Thielen can do. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Cousins can do there. Um, you know, uh, I'm kind of anxious now. I've got through my rankings. I am ready to hear Sean's QB rankings. Let's get 1 through 5, and then we'll kind of see where you're at.
Well, we got a couple of the top same ones, so I'm only going to touch a little bit on the ones that we have in the same areas there, so we don't go over the same player multiple times. But it is kind of a roller coaster ride jumping on my list here. So I'm along with you there, BK. I went with Josh Allen, like I said, with Diggs, Davis, and Crowder there, Knox, and then picking up a pass catching back on top of it. I mean, he's got all the weapons to be super successful. I think he's going to be the number one pretty much most of the season. I even see him going in first round, late first round picks, even in a couple mocks I've done. So he definitely good value with Josh Allen there. So keep your eye on him. And at number 2, I'm not far off you. I think you had Herbert at number 3. I got Herbert coming in number 2, finishing up the season with 5,014 yards and 38 touchdowns. I mean, he's dangerous. You got Eckler, one of the great pass catching backs of all time there with him. So we'll just step past Herbert here. I'll go number 3, which is this one's a little off. I think you had him later in yours. I got Jalen Hurts number 3. I mean, first of all, the guy can get out of the pocket. He can run. He's dangerous in that aspect. And then on top of it, adding AJ Brown as a weapon. I mean, you're a guy, Goddard at tight end. You got Brown on one side. I mean, it's going to open up even the running game for Jalen. I mean, they're going to be all over Brown. I mean, what's your take on that, BK? You're my Philly fan.
Yeah, I had Hurts at 4, so you actually have him a little higher than me, but we're right in that same territory. So yeah, I think the addition of AJ is going to have a huge impact on Jalen. They're best friends, and I mean, play with your best friend. They practice all summer long. Their chemistry has got to be great. So it's only going to help. It's only going to help Hurts, and he was 8th last year. No reason he couldn't be a top 3 guy this year. I agree.
Yep, and I definitely see with the addition of AJ Brown, I think Devontae Smith develops a lot better. Especially behind AJ Brown. He might even see some more action from Hurts. With the addition of Brown. So let's move past them. Uh, I got number 4. I got Joe Burrow, Joe Cool. I'm like right with you there. How can you not like this guy? 4,611 yards and 34 touchdowns in his second year. Then he pick up a rookie wide receiver last year that everybody dissed on all season. He wasn't going to be anything. Small hands, can't catch, and boom, you got Jamar Chase. Now you're looking at soon to be number 1 wide receiver in the league, and Joe is just taking care of business there. So let's move on to my number 5 here. I'm with you there with Tom Brady at number 5. I don't even need to say that much. I mean, he's the GOAT. No matter who you put in front of this guy, he's going to pass the ball to him. They're going to catch it. He's going to have big games. And he's really coming off the 2021 season with one of his best seasons that he's had in his career, if you look at his stats. So they've added Russell Gage to the weapon. You got Mike Evans, Godwin, and then with the new addition of Julio Jones, who is he not going to throw it to? I mean, you got Cameron Brate as tight end. I think Tom Brady's still got it. He's going to be definitely a top 5, if not higher. And like I told you in the last episode, I see Tampa going to the bowl again. So they're making the moves for it.
Yeah, you that was your Super Bowl pick. So,
and I'm not a huge Tom Brady fan.
Just to quickly hit on your top 5, and we're the same on Allen and Brady. We differ there with you had Herbert at 2, I had him at 3. Hurts, you have him at 3, I had him at 4. But the big one is Burrow, Mr. Joe Cool. You have him at 4, I had him at 9. I absolutely love your argument there. He has a unbelievable chemistry with Jamar Chase. The guy seems to be able to make all the throws. No reason that he's couldn't be a top 5 quarterback at all. So, yeah, I like your top 5. Um, why don't you go ahead and finish out your QB rankings? I want to hear the rest of what you got there, 6 through 12.
My number 6 here is going to knock the socks off a lot of you listeners right off. So either just take them off now or get them blown off by me right here, right now. So this guy has a top 5 tight end, ranked top 5. He also has a ranked top 5 wide receiver on his squad. But he's ranked 15th in most of the consensus. How does that make any type of sense, people? Does anybody know? I mean, can you even guess who I'm talking about, BK?
15th, Matt Ryan?
No. We're going to go with the guy who wears some black and silver, Derek Carr.
Oh, okay.
That receiving staff is stacked for him not to be ranked higher than he is. He's looked down upon, and I don't know why, but with their new addition of Devontae Adams, and you got Hunter Renfrow on the other side, and then you got Waller the baller. Why wouldn't he be up near the top? I think 15, he's way underrated. I see him doing a lot more. I see the Raiders being a real solid team this year. As long as they get their defense together, their offense is going to be explosive. So I have him at number 6. I know a lot of you think I'm a little crazy, but go ahead, BK.
How many yards do you have his stats from last year by chance?
Yes, actually. Give me a hot second here. I got him sitting right next to me.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious.
Oh, no, I got it up on my other screen here. His stats from last year. All right. He 626 attempts, 428 completions, 4,804 yards, 23 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. So
okay, yeah, he can only improve on that with the talent they got there and a better a better offensive scheme, I think, with Josh McDaniels as well.
Yes. Well, with the addition of Adams, I mean, you even got to think that Jacobs' job's going to step up a little bit there too. But with that wide receivers and the tight end, I mean, he's a solid top 10. So I mean, I got him at 6. He's got a lot of upside that nobody's giving him credit for. So we'll see where he ends up at. So I'm going to move on to the next one here. I got Matt Stafford at number 7, Super Bowl champ. You know, like you touch base. I mean, he made Cooper Cup a superstar, and Cooper Cup can catch anything. You know, Stafford spent all those years in Detroit throwing to Calvin. They just could never do anything else. So he went somewhere else and had a team around him to surround him with another good receiver and a great defense. And there he goes. Boom. Touchdown. Boom. Super Bowl championship. It's Matt Stafford. You know, he deserved it more than anybody, I think, all the hard luck he's had throughout his career.
I agree.
So we'll move past him since you touched base on most of him. My number 8, I don't even think you had on your list. Russell Wilson. You know, making the big change over to Denver.
I did not have him on my list.
I think with with Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, I just he's got a good little setup there. Plus, they got a good defense, so I think they're gonna be able to stay in the game. He's got Melvin Gordon at running back. Russell can still move a little bit. I see him doing new things in a new town. I think Denver makes a good run for it this year. I see Russell leading them there. He took the Seahawks to the Super Bowl. I mean, we all know about the last minute I'm going to pass at the goal line thing, but he still took them there. Still was in the game. So that's a lot more than a lot of these other quarterbacks can say. So we'll move past Wilson and jump to my number 9. And I kind of feel the same way you do about this one. It's Dak Prescott. I like him and I don't like him, but their run game is it's unstable with Zeke. You know, he's not that consistent, and Pollard is explosive. He does have to throw the ball. They always have to come back. A lot of games they're always trailing, and they always have to try to make some last minute plays, and that's where you'll get your Prescott points. I've had him for the last 2 years, and he's been a savior on that.
He's just so up and down. That's the struggle that I have with him is when it feels like if it comes to a game that you need him, how comfortable are you really putting him in? Because he seems to have like these huge 30, 40 point games, and then several like 8 to 12 point games in a row. It's just odd. It's hard to really feel good about putting him in every week, which is why you kind of shuffled him around with. I think you had Brady last year, was it?
Yep, I had Brady, and then the year before I had Mahomes with him.
And as we've seen, Brady ended up as the number 4 fantasy quarterback last year. So, I mean, it worked out well for you to have them both, but I think you pretty much ended up relying on Brady and kind of feeling uncomfortable with Prescott.
I feel you there. Like I said, his 2020 season, he came out and he was just going to be setting records with the way he was throwing the ball, the way he was looking, and then boom, he's down. And I just don't think he's fully recovered yet. But I do see him making some progress this year. I know he's going to be down Amari Cooper, but he does have a good report with Schultz, and they got CD moving up. Not a huge Gallup fan, but we'll see what he does. I mean, they paid him. Let's see if he works, Well, moving on to my number 10, Patrick Mahomes. I like Mahomes. I think he's a solid player, solid quarterback. But I mean, he lost Hill, and that was his go-to. That was a lot of his big plays, his big yardage plays were Tyreek Hill. The 70-yard pass.
Really low.
They got to wait. Somebody's going to have to step up in Kansas City, and I mean, who's going to do it? Hardman. I mean, they picked up Sky Moore. Didn't they give Scantlin too?
Yeah, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Yep,
Yeah, I
and
mean,
Juju.
to me, he's just Scantlin's not a top. He's not a Tyreek Hill. Hardman's not a Tyreek Hill. Sky Moore could turn into a Tyreek Hill. Let's give him some time and see. I mean, I am a fan of Sky Moore, so we'll see how that turns out. But I got Mahomes at 10. He's gonna have to prove a little something to see what he can do without his number one. And my next one on my list is Nicolas Cage. Oh, I mean, sorry, Aaron Rodgers.
Nice, nice. I like that.
Right? Always gets the job done. I mean, he's been without Devontae before. They still got the job done. Tanyan's back from his ACL. I like Christian Watson. I think he could be another big one coming up. You got Lazard and Cobb returning. They know the offense. They've been there. I'm not a big fan of Lazard being a number one. Hopefully Watson can take that away from him. But I mean, the backfield, I mean, with Aaron Jones, he's just solid. So I see Rodgers. I see Rodgers still has it. You know, he's getting older. You know, looking like he's been on a big airplane and he should be in prison. But we're okay with that. I can see
Always
him.
like he always likes that attention. You know that.
I can see him still hanging on to it. He's still got the pizzazz. So, and then my last one, I'm not keen on this pick, and the stats will explain it. But I got Lamar Jackson. I mean, he is a good quarterback. He is very mobile. He can run. Not too impressed with his throwing. Like you said, he lost his number one also. He's still got Andrews, which Andrews does produce. But I mean, just looking at his stats last year, he did decline a lot last year. I mean, he had only 2,882 yards, 16 TDs, and 13 interceptions. And then for rushing, he had 700 yards, 2 TDs, and 6 fumbles. So, I mean, hopefully he gets his acting gear because Baltimore's going to need him, you know, in that division with Cincinnati to be running away with it. So,
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see because J.K. Dobbins is back now too.
yeah,
Um,
hopefully
it'll
Dobbins
help.
gets a lot of the carries, though.
Yeah, I would think so. I think you're going to see Dobbins get the majority. I think you're going to see Gus Edwards in a little, your little scat back role. Um, but yeah, a lot of that's going to influence Lamar's success because they need, besides just Lamar being able to run, they need a solid running game that they really didn't have last year, um, to open up the field for Lamar to try and beat the guys over the top because his accuracy isn't great, but he's got a good arm to get over the top if the receivers are fast enough to get by the corners.
Yeah, I'm with you there, BK. Like I said, he took a decel last year. I just don't see him being ranked as a lot of people see him being ranked higher. I think he has to come out and prove himself a little bit at the beginning of the year, you know. So, but here's my recap here. We got Lamar Jackson at 12, Aaron Rodgers at 11, Patrick Mahomes at 10, Dak Prescott at 9, Russell Wilson at 8, Matt Stafford at 7, Derek Carr at 6, not 15 like the consensus. Tom Brady at number 5, Joe Burrow number 4, Jalen Hurts number 3, which hurts me because go Cowboys. Justin Herbert number 2, and Josh Allen leading it off with number 1.
Very nice, very nice. There's only a few that we differ here, and I didn't have Carr or Wilson at all on my list. I had Jackson at 7, Rodgers you had Jackson at 12. I had him at 7. Rodgers were basically the same. Prescott were basically the same. So not a whole lot of difference other than the fact that you had Russell and Carr, and I didn't have either one of them in mine. So at the same time, I had Kyler in mine, and you didn't. So it'll be interesting to see how our rankings play out throughout the year. But um, this is why we enjoy doing this and kind of have this to go off of, a little bit of different advice for everybody, and you kind of find your happy medium, what you're comfortable with, and take our advice and your own advice and go from there.
Oh yeah. Well, I can't wait to get to our quarterback rankings 13 to 24 coming up here soon. And maybe
Yeah,
next
we'll
week
be
or
getting on those next week. This weekend, we got a little show. We'll do some training camp news, just kind of talk about some of the stuff we've seen. And then we'll talk this weekend as well, 2022 rookies.
Woo! My favorite.
Oh, yeah, who to watch for and get to know their names. So it's always nice to kind of, and Sean, who's a rookie expert, I think he has his doctorate in rookies.
Right? They're my favorite. It's like you can get the best value with a rookie because nobody knows what to expect. And if you play your cards right, you can end up with a stacked team of rookies who are just breaking out.
At great value. You always seem to master that. So uh, we'll definitely be focusing on a lot of Sean's rankings with those rookies, and like I said, just getting used to some of these names that you might not have heard yet that you may want to know before you go into your fantasy draft, which those are coming up as well. Um, so yeah, that's. I think this is where towards the end here, Sean.
Well, I just want to just to let people know the next Tuesday for another full week of getting everybody ready for your drafts. Check us out. Make sure you tune in because after the little weekend show, we're gonna be back on our rankings and maybe even be touching wide receivers a little bit next week, right there, BK.
Yes, sir. We'll be
So,
dabbling in some receivers.
well, I'll finish up and start the end of the show here. Just want to thank everybody for listening and make sure you give us that thumbs up and go to our website there, fantasyfootballdrive.com. That's where you can leave those comments and questions for us to answer and get back to you next show. Hopefully, we got a few more questions that we can answer. And thank you again for listening. I'm going to pass it over to BK to add his what should be 2 cents, but he's kind of broke, so it might just be one. So
It's
to
actually
you,
it's
BK.
actually it's 2.5 cents. I ended up finding another half cent in my pocket. Uh,
Did you clean out the
yeah,
couch?
yeah, that's what it was. I was wailing around on the couch and found an extra little half a coin. Um, yeah, no, I just a second on top of that with Sean and thank everybody for joining us again, episode 4 here. Um, I want to remind you to please go to facebook.com/fantasy drive. Give us a like or a follow on there. You can also send us questions through the Facebook site as well. Or you can go to Twitter. We're at drive_fantasy on Twitter. Um, also, look for that little yellow and red logo on YouTube for the Fantasy Football Drive. We are on there as well, if that's what you prefer. We have Sean with no video today. I blame him, and he can answer to everybody about that. But that's all that we have till this weekend. We are out. I'm Brian.
And I'm Sean.
Peace out. We'll be back for the weekend show.
See you on the weekend, guys. Peace.